Hi guys, Mark from Mind Frontiers. So my topic today has been about belief, and it's been about how we believe it's right to blame others and not take responsibility, and how we take guilt personally, or how we can throw guilt out. And I've been looking and I thought, well, I've talked about it, but I've not talked in any great detail about how we could maybe resolve it. I've said about becoming self-aware and what impact it's going to have on other people. So I want to talk to you a little bit further about guilt and blame and how it leads into our belief system, and our belief system is that, it's always my fault or it's always your fault. And we live our lives by that system. And we look for evidence. So say we've done something different, and then we make a mistake. And it's like, see, I told you it was going to happen. We live our lives to prove our beliefs. But what we don't do is actually take some time and go, let's take a step back. Often, and in neuro-linguistic programming terms, we talk about perceptual positions. So this is the positions that we take when we're in conflict or we're having an interaction with somebody else. It doesn't necessarily mean conflict, but it can be used in conflict. We look at it from 3 points of view when we look at NLP. Now there are more points of view, so we have the first person point of view, which is we always see it from our own side, which is when we're in conflict with somebody or in an argument. That's what side we see it from. Position 2 is when we see it from another person's point of view. And position 3 is actually we'll take a step back and look at it from an observer's point of view. And then position 4 and position 5, which we're not going to discuss here, is about how to look at it universally over globally of time and processes, that sort of thing. But for now we'll just look at positions 1, 2 and 3. These are vital, especially when we've got blame and we've got guilt and we're living our lives based on our beliefs, which leads us to have more guilt and more guilt throwing and more blame because we're not taking responsibility for what we're doing. So position 1 would be, for example, the person throwing the guilt, having the argument, it's your fault, you always do this and this always makes me do this. Blame. Guilt. The second position is more about, yes, I can understand how it's always my fault, and I can take that on board. Yes, it's always my fault and I won't do it again and I'll try to do better next time. Position 2, always absolute, taking responsibility for other people's actions and not taking it, going yeah, not taking responsibility. Some bits may be their fault, some bits may not. And position 3, so that's looking at it from an outside point of view. So if somebody was to watch this situation, what would they see? How would they see it? Now there are different ways that we can actually do this. So we have the power of our brain. Now this cannot be done when the emotional brain takes over. This has to be done either before the conflict, which is great because that means you've caught it before it actually happens, or afterwards, as in reflection. If you can learn to do it beforehand, then you've hit the nail on the head and the conflict won't arise in the first place and you'll be much better off. If you can do it afterwards, you have to do it when you're calm. When both people are calm, you can actually sit back and go, okay, let's look at the facts. So I see it from my point of view and my point of view only, and I'm right and you're wrong. That's position 1. And it's throwing blame and it's throwing guilt. So let's remove that for a start. Okay, what is my message? What is the purpose of my message? So what am I getting out of it? What is in it for me? My favourite radio station, WIIFM. What is in it for me? So ask yourself, What did I get out of that? By blaming this person, what did I get out of it? Now imagine yourself as a bubble. Easy enough to do. Put a bubble around it and imagine just floating up in the air to the other person and resting it and seeing you from their eyes. What is different with that feeling when you look at it from another point of view? Because naturally they are a different person and so are you. So if you can learn to start seeing it from another perspective, things can change. So imagine now that you can just be in that bubble again and float it out and float up in the air. And imagine floating into somebody that's watching. So they've seen the conflict from the beginning, from the very, very start. They know what causes it. And they can see, so you can see yourself, and you can see the person you're in conflict with. Now, what would you do differently? What learning can you take from it? And then you're starting to learn to become aware of your programs, what it is actually you're doing. You can look at things like your body language, listen to the tone of your voice, watch the other person to see how it's been received. Are they cowering? What are their body language telling you? What is their facial expression telling you? What's your facial expression telling you? Therefore, you're looking at the impact that what you're doing is having. Now, if you're in position 2, you can do the same process. Because position 2, yes, it's always my fault. It's always my fault. Look at the facts and go, actually, is it all my fault? Or are there things that I can do to change this? So let me look at position 1. What was he trying to, or she, what was he or she trying to get out of this message? What were they trying to get out of it? What am I getting out of it of being in this position? This is often what we call the victim position. And this is quite a useful position at times for some people. And I'll tell you about that a little bit later on. So what does the observer see? When you can start learning to actually take a step back and reflect, or catch it beforehand, you can start looking at what messages are supposed to be sent out, how they are delivered, how you can change the delivery, what impact it's having on the delivery, and what you can do differently. This is a very powerful tool. It takes a lot of practice and it takes time to process. So take some time afterwards, calm yourself down from the conflict or from the fact that when you've been blaming and guilt tripping other people or receiving guilt, so that you can look at the facts and take things step by step. So the victim position, I personally was for a long time was in this position. I was bullied badly at school, but I also took that into my adult life and things didn't work, and I always used to say everything was my fault. Why? Because it was easier to do so. It was easier and simpler by saying, yes, it's all my fault. Because I am what we call a pain avoider. So if somebody was having a conflict with me, it was easier to say, yeah, it's all my fault. But actually mean it. Because that way the conflict was over quicker. So peace of mind, so to speak. But it wasn't really peace of mind. It was just a mechanism which was ineffective at the time because it actually made me poorly. So I'll give you an example. What was I getting out of being bullied at school? And again, it's the same sort of mechanism. I was being badly bullied at school. Really badly bullied at school. But if I fought back, it's likely to get worse. So I accepted whatever they gave me, and tried to move on, but I didn't move on. I was holding it. But also I got friendship and love and support from my friends who were in a similar position. So I got companionship. So I was never really wanting to change that back then, because I didn't know what it was doing to me. Didn't know what it was doing to other people. But I accepted everything that was given to me and said it was all my fault. Well, I'm different to everybody else, so it's fine that I can be bullied. But it's not really. It was a pain protection mechanism, but I got friendship, love and support out of it. So, if you're stuck in these positions, what are you getting out of it? And what impact is it having on other people? For me, I got my friendship and I got my support. And then when I became poorly, I got, we'll try and make you feel better. And that's okay. But when I was in conflict with other people, I didn't take responsibility. I just said it's my fault, yes, my fault. So I took all the responsibility, not some of it. But when I started looking at these positions, I was like, that's not right. That's not effective. This is making me poorly. So illness, stress, anxiety, depression, guilt, all come from our thoughts and our emotions. And that comes from the chemicals running around our body. But they're all designed for a specific purpose, to be used at that minute in time. Not to be sat there in the body, which causes dis-ease, as in disease. So I learnt to take responsibility. I learnt actually not to take all the guilt. Now sometimes I still have to catch myself and go, hang on, they're throwing guilt at me there. I don't need that, because actually this isn't my fault. Or actually that was my fault. I can understand where you're coming from. Okay, so this was my fault in part, so I did this bit, but this bit not in my control. So what can I do differently so that I do not do this again? Because my job is, I don't want to upset you, and I want to be loving and caring. So what can I do differently? And then you have a new plan, you have a strategy. Well, you shouldn't have said such and such. Okay, I will do my best not to say such and such, because I know that actually it has an impact on you. And for me saying that particular part, I do apologise, and I really mean it. But the difference is saying the words and actually doing. So if you're doing actions and going, I'm not doing that anymore, and you don't do it, then the apology is actually meant. Now you can still make mistakes, but if you're not doing it on the whole, at least you're seeing to be working towards where you want to be. So look at the position that you take all the time, or in conflict, whenever it might be. Are you deliberately or unconsciously throwing out guilt and manipulation to make others feel something like negative, so that you have more power, you have more self-esteem? And if so, can you do it differently and still get the same results? Because when we learn to love ourselves, so hand on heart, I love myself, we can remove guilt, we can remove blame, we don't need the perceptual positions, because actually we're okay with ourselves, and we know that actually we're acting with love and support for other people, as well as loving and support for ourselves, because we always have to take time for ourselves as well. Because if we're alright with us, that's what we share with other people. If we're not alright with us, so we've got low self-esteem, so we like to control the situation so that we have some degree of control, but we use a manipulative tool like guilt, then that's what we share. So what are you sharing, guys? Let's look at the facts. Okay, so position 1 is all about you. Self. That's fine if you want to look after yourself and take care of yourself. But when it overcomes and then it's like, well, I'm right, that means that whatever you have to do, something else has to be wrong. And that's making a judgment, either on other people or other things or situations. It can even be judgment on yourself, because we can be self-critical. And position 2 it's always about other people. We're a people pleaser. We will do everything for everybody else but not take some time for ourselves. And position 3 is all about, actually, let's look back. Let's look at 1 and 2, see it from their perspective, so that we can actually see the full story. Because when position 1, you're not getting a full story. Position 2, you're not getting a full story. Because you're either seeing it from your own point of view or seeing it from somebody else's point of view. Position 3, you're seeing both points of view. Get the full story. And then run that through your feelings. So, position 1, what's your feeling? I'm angry. Position 2, yeah. Okay, whatever you say. In position 3, what's your feelings when you go through the different perspectives? Does it change? Because when you start doing it properly, things will change. And you might see things that you didn't see before. And that way, you can actually get, I didn't notice that I was standing over the top of you and using an aggressive body language. Or, I didn't realise I was sitting there going, yeah, just go away. You start looking at the facts. You start looking at the situations and you start learning from those facts. So, thank you very much, guys. Do like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and my Twitter feed. And don't forget to smile and love each other and love yourselves. So take care, guys. See you later.